Before we talk about who might be coming, I want you to imagine something with me. You're standing in a forest. It's twilight. The trees are tall, ancient, and you're alone. You hear a sound in the distance, a footstep maybe, a branch breaking, something moving toward you through the darkness. Your first question isn't, "What is that?" Your first question is, "Who is that?" Because that question, who, tells you everything you need to know about how to respond. A lost hiker? You call out, offer help. A predator? You back away slowly, make yourself large, prepare to defend. A friend? You run toward them, relieved. The who determines everything that happens next. If 3i Atlas is a spacecraft, and we explored that possibility in our last video, then someone built it. Someone designed its trajectory. Someone launched it across the vast darkness between stars with a specific purpose in mind. And the most important question we can ask isn't about the technology, or the physics, or even the probability. The most important question is, who sent it? Tonight we're going to explore that question, not from an engineering perspective, but from a civilizational one. We're going to think about what kind of species achieves interstellar travel, what motivates them, what they might want, what they might fear. We're going to look in the mirror and ask, if we met them, what would they see in us? And we're going to consider three basic categories of visitors: explorers, refugees, and hunters, because those categories encompass almost every reason a civilization might send something like 3i Atlas across the cosmic void. This isn't going to be a comfortable conversation. Some of the scenarios we'll explore are hopeful, even beautiful. Others are less so, but all of them are based on our understanding of evolution, game theory, and the few universal principles that probably govern any technological civilization anywhere in the universe. Long pause. Let anticipation build. So settle in. Get comfortable. We're going to be here for a while thinking about neighbors we've never met, trying to understand minds that evolved under alien suns, wrestling with the oldest question in human history. Are we alone? And if we're not, who else is out there? Let's begin. In 1964, a Soviet astronomer named Nikolai Kardashev proposed a way to classify civilizations based on their energy consumption. It's become known as the Kardashev scale, and while it's oversimplified, it gives us a useful framework for thinking about technological advancement. The scale has three main types. Type 1, civilizations can harness all the energy available on their planet. Solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, everything. They can control their weather, prevent natural disasters, and manage their entire planet's resources. We're not there yet. We're currently around 0.73 on the Kardashev scale. Close, but not quite. We're a Type 0 civilization reaching for Type 1 status. Type 2. Civilizations can harness all the energy of their star. They might build Dyson spheres, massive structures surrounding their sun, capturing every photon of light for energy. They've spread throughout their solar system, colonized multiple worlds, and treat planets the way we treat cities. Type 3. Civilizations control their entire galaxy. They've spread across thousands or millions of star systems, harnessing the energy of billions of stars. They're essentially gods from our perspective, capable of engineering on scales we can barely imagine. Now, here's what matters for our conversation tonight. If 3i Atlas is artificial, whoever built it is at least a Type 2 civilization, probably. Why? Because interstellar travel is hard. Not hard like climbing Everest. Hard like... There's no good analogy. It's hard in ways that challenge our basic understanding of what's possible. Let me give you some numbers. 3i Atlas is traveling at 33 kilometers per second relative to our Sun. That's fast, about 74,000 miles per hour. But in cosmic terms, it's actually slow. The nearest star to us, Proxima Centauri, is 424 light-years away. At 3i Atlas's current speed, it would take about 40,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri, or 40,000 years. No biological crew could survive that journey without some kind of suspended animation, generational ship, or technology we haven't imagined yet. And that's just to reach the nearest star. If 3i Atlas came from a system 30 or 60 light-years away, which the pristine composition suggests might be the case, we're talking about journeys lasting hundreds thousands or even millions of years. The energy required to accelerate a 7-mile-wide object to interstellar velocities is staggering. We're talking about energy outputs equivalent to the total energy production of human civilization for decades, maybe centuries, just for a single launch. Only a civilization that has mastered stellar energy, a Type II civilization, could reasonably attempt something like this. They'd need fusion reactors the size of cities, or antimatter production facilities, or something even more exotic. So when we ask who sent 3I Atlas, we're asking about a civilization that has survived long enough to reach a Type II status, at least thousands of years of technological development beyond us. Solve problems we haven't even begun to understand. Interstellar navigation, long-duration engineering, possibly faster-than-light communication. Decided that sending missions to other star systems was worth the enormous investment. That third point is crucial, because technological capability doesn't automatically mean motivation. A civilization might have the ability to send interstellar probes, but choose not to. Resources are finite even for advanced civilizations. Every probe sent to another star system is energy and materials that could be used elsewhere. So, why send 3I Atlas? That's where we get into civilizational psychology. The motivations that would drive a species to invest that much time, energy, and resources into studying distant star systems. And when we think about motivations, 3 categories emerge, based on everything we know about evolution, survival, and the behavior of intelligent species exploration. Pure curiosity. The desire to understand, to map, to know what's out there. Migration. Necessity. Their home system is dying, or they've exhausted their resources, or they're fleeing something. They're looking for new places to survive. Competition, threat assessment. They're mapping potential rivals, eliminating future competitors, or establishing dominance before others can challenge them. Explorers, refugees, and hunters. Each of these motivations leads to very different types of first contact, very different outcomes for humanity, and very different implications for what happens next. So let's explore each one. Let's think about what kind of civilization falls into each category, what they want, and what they do with the information 3I Atlas is potentially gathering, starting with the most hopeful scenario. The explorers. Imagine you're part of a civilization that solved its existential problems centuries ago. You've achieved fusion power. You've cured diseases. You've eliminated scarcity through advanced automation and resource management. Your people live long, healthy lives, maybe centuries, maybe longer. You've spread throughout your solar system, established colonies on multiple worlds, built space habitats that house billions. You're stable, secure. You have everything you need. So, what do you do next? If your species is anything like ours, you look outward. You wonder what else is out there. You want to know if you're alone. This is the explorer motivation. It's driven by curiosity rather than necessity. It's science for the sake of science. Understanding for the sake of understanding, and honestly, this is the scenario most SETI researchers hope for. Because explorers, by definition, aren't threats. They're not competing with you for resources. They're not fleeing disaster. They're just curious. An explorer civilization would send probes like 3I Atlas for a few key reasons. First, catalog life. If life is rare in the universe and we don't know if it is or isn't, then discovering another living world would be incredibly valuable from a scientific perspective, even if that life is just bacteria or simple multicellular organisms. But intelligent life? Technological life? That would be extraordinary. Think about how we'd react if we confirmed microbial life on Mars or Europa. It would be the biggest scientific discovery in human history. Now imagine you're an advanced civilization that's been searching for centuries, maybe millennia, and you finally detect signs of another technological species. The electromagnetic signatures of radio and television, the chemical signatures of industrial atmospheres, the light signatures of cities on the night side of a planet. You'd want to know more. You'd want to study them, understand how they evolved, see how their technology compares to yours at a similar stage of development. Second, long-term observation. Civilizations change. A species that's currently primitive might become advanced in 10,000 years. An explorer civilization might want to establish observation posts, probes that can monitor developing worlds over long timescales, tracking their progress, documenting their evolution. ITER Atlas could be one node in a vast network of such probes scattered throughout the galaxy, each one watching a different star system, sending periodic reports back to their creators. It's cosmic anthropology, studying how intelligence emerges, how technology develops, how civilizations rise and sometimes fall. Third, making contact eventually. Not now. Not while we're primitive, but maybe in a few centuries, when we've matured technologically and socially, when we've proven we can manage our own power without destroying ourselves. There's a concept in science fiction called the zoo hypothesis. The whole idea that advanced civilizations know we're here, but deliberately don't contact us because we're not ready yet. We're like animals in a nature preserve, observed, protected, but not interfered with until we reach a certain threshold of development. If 3I Atlas represents explorer motivations, then its creators are probably benign. They're watching us, yes, recording data, analyzing our civilization, but they're not planning invasion or exploitation. They're just curious. The question is, what happens when they decide we're ready for contact? And how do they decide that? What's the threshold? Achieving fusion power? Establishing permanent off-world colonies? Resolving our political conflicts? Demonstrating we can manage our planetary resources sustainably? We don't know. And that uncertainty is unsettling even in the hopeful scenario. There's another aspect to consider with explorer civilizations. Cultural motivation. Why does a civilization that has everything it needs continue exploring? What drives them outward instead of inward? Maybe it's biological. Maybe their species evolved with an innate drive to explore, to expand, to see what's over the next hill. Many Earth species show exploratory behavior even when their survival needs are met. Crows investigate new objects. Dolphins play with unfamiliar items. Humans climb mountains because they're there. Or maybe it's cultural. Maybe they've built a society that values knowledge above all else. The ultimate scientific civilization, where understanding the universe is considered the highest purpose. Or maybe, and this is darker, maybe they've learned from history. Maybe they know what happens to civilizations that stop exploring, that become complacent. Maybe exploration is how they stay vibrant, purposeful, alive as a culture. If 3I Atlas comes from explorers, then first contact, when it finally happens, might look like this. They reveal themselves slowly. Maybe a radio transmission first, mathematical proofs that demonstrate intelligence, then more complex messages. Information about their biology, their history, their technology. They offer knowledge but respect our autonomy. They don't interfere directly. They let us choose whether to engage, at what pace, on what terms. It's the Star Trek scenario, the optimistic vision. Contact that uplifts both civilizations through shared knowledge and mutual respect. That's the best case, but there are other possibilities. Now, imagine a different scenario. You're part of a civilization that's dying. Maybe your star is entering its red giant phase, expanding, heating your worlds beyond habitability. You have maybe 1,000 years before your home system becomes uninhabitable. That sounds like a long time, but for a civilization, it's nothing. It's barely enough time to prepare, to build the ships, to plan the exodus. Or maybe it's not your star. Maybe it's something else. Resource depletion, ecological collapse, a pandemic that your medicine can't cure, a war that went too far, an artificial intelligence that turned against its creators. Whatever the cause, you're facing extinction. And you have two choices: die with your world or flee to the stars. This is the refugee scenario. And it changes everything, because refugees aren't exploring. They're not studying other civilizations out of curiosity. They're looking for survival, for new homes, for places their species can continue existing. And when survival is at stake, morality becomes complicated. If 3I Atlas represents a refugee civilization, then it's not just gathering scientific data, it's conducting a resource survey, evaluating our solar system for habitability, for materials, for energy sources. Questions they'd be asking: is this system stable? Will the star remain in its main sequence for billions of years? Are there habitable worlds? Planets with water, breathable atmospheres, tolerable gravity? Are there resources? Metals for construction, volatiles for fuel, energy sources they can tap. Is there competition? Are these worlds already claimed by an indigenous species? That last question is where things get ethically murky. Let's think about this from their perspective for a moment. You're a refugee civilization. Your species numbers in the billions, maybe trillions. Your homeworlds are dying. You've spent centuries searching for new systems to colonize, and you've finally found one that meets your needs, except it's already occupied by a primitive species, humans, who have barely left their home planet, who don't have the technology to defend their system, who don't even know you're evaluating them. What do you do? Option A, move on. Find another system. Keep searching until you find uninhabited worlds you can claim without displacing anyone. But what if you're running out of time? What if your ships can only travel so far before resources run out? What if this is the only suitable system within range? Option B, coexist. Share the solar system. There's plenty of room. You take Mars, the moons of Jupiter, the asteroid belt. Let the humans keep Earth. Maybe even offer them technology in exchange for territory. But what if you need Earth? What if your biology requires Earth-like conditions that aren't found on other worlds in the system? What if Mars isn't enough? Option C, displacement. Take what you need. The humans are numerous, but technologically primitive. You have the advantage. It's nothing personal, just survival. You'd do it humanely, maybe even offer to relocate some humans to less desirable worlds, preserve their species in some form, but it's still colonization, still conquest, still the end of human civilization as we know it. I don't say this to frighten you. I say it because this is the ethical dilemma any refugee civilization would face. And we have to consider it because if 3i Atlas is a refugee scout, this is the calculation happening right now, somewhere far away. As its creators analyze the data it sends back, there's a historical parallel here that's uncomfortably relevant. When European colonizers reached the Americas, they encountered indigenous civilizations that were technologically less advanced. And we know how that turned out. Centuries of displacement, exploitation, cultural destruction. But here's the crucial difference. Those colonizers weren't facing extinction in Europe. They were motivated by greed, ambition, religious fervor, not survival necessity. A refugee civilization fleeing a dying world is operating under very different pressures. Does that justify displacement? Of course not. But it makes the moral calculation infinitely more complex. If 3i Atlas represents refugees, then first contact might not be contact at all. It might be arrival, colonial ships entering our solar system, claiming territory, initiating the kind of cultural collision that humans have experienced among ourselves throughout history. Or maybe, and this is the hopeful version of the refugee scenario, maybe they'd reach out before arriving, explain their situation, negotiate, offer technology or knowledge in exchange for territory. Try to find a solution that allows both species to survive. That would require a level of ethical sophistication that most human civilizations haven't achieved when resources are scarce and survival is threatened. But maybe an advanced civilization would have learned those lessons. Maybe they'd be better than we've been. We'll come back to this. But first, there's a third category we need to consider, the darkest one. Tone becomes more measured, serious, almost clinical. The third motivation is the one nobody wants to talk about publicly, but everyone thinks about privately when discussions of alien contact come up. Predation, or more accurately, preemptive elimination of potential threats. This is the dark forest hypothesis taken to its logical conclusion. The idea that the galaxy is full of civilizations, but they're all hiding because revealing yourself is suicide. Because the moment you're detected, you become a target. We talked about this theory in the previous video, but now we need to think about what kind of civilization actually implements it. Who are the hunters? Let's be clear, we're not talking about cartoon villains. We're not talking about species that are evil for evil's sake, that conquer because they enjoy destruction. We're talking about something more rational, more calculated, and in some ways, more terrifying. Imagine you're a civilization that has survived for millions of years. You've seen other civilizations rise and fall. Maybe you've even been threatened by them, gone to war, barely survived. You've learned that the galaxy is dangerous. That technological civilizations, once they reach a certain threshold, become either allies or existential threats. And you can never really know which until it's too late. So you develop a strategy. Monitor developing civilizations. Watch them from a distance. And when they reach a certain level of technological development, when they're advanced enough to potentially threaten you someday, but not advanced enough to defend themselves, you eliminate them. Not out of cruelty, out of cold game theory logic. Survival of the cautious. This is the scenario that keeps planetary defense people awake at night. Because if this is what 3i Atlas represents, then we're not being studied out of curiosity. We're being assessed as a potential threat, and the assessment criteria might be things we're proud of. Achieving nuclear power, developing artificial intelligence, launching spacecraft beyond our solar system. Each technological milestone could be a red flag, a sign that we're approaching the danger threshold. What would that threshold be? What level of technology makes a civilization dangerous enough to warrant preemptive action? Maybe it's faster than light travel. A species that can cross interstellar distances quickly becomes a potential invader. Maybe it's self-replicating machines. Von Neumann, probes that can strip mine asteroids and build copies of themselves. A species with that technology could consume entire star systems. Maybe it's something we haven't even invented yet. Some technology we're decades or centuries away from developing, but that an advanced civilization knows is coming. If 3i Atlas is a hunter probe, then its mission is assessment followed by reporting. It gathers data on our technological level, our military capabilities, our social cohesion, our vulnerabilities. Then it transmits that information back to its creators, and they make a decision. Are humans a threat? Not now maybe, but in 1,000 years? 10,000. Better to eliminate the problem while it's still manageable. I need to emphasize this is speculation. Dark speculation at that. We have no evidence that this is what 3i Atlas represents. But we'd be foolish not to consider the possibility, because if it's true, the implications are so severe that even a small probability demands serious thought. There's a counter-argument to the hunter scenario, though. And it's worth considering. If a civilization is advanced enough to send interstellar probes, they're probably advanced enough that primitive species like us pose no threat to them. They're so far ahead technologically that we're irrelevant. Why would they waste resources eliminating a species that can't possibly challenge them? Think about it from our perspective. We don't preemptively eliminate chimpanzee populations because we're worried they might evolve intelligence and threaten us someday. The timescales are too long, the threat too speculative, the ethical costs too high. Maybe advanced civilizations think the same way about us, or maybe not. Maybe they've learned lessons we haven't. Maybe they've seen what happens when you underestimate a developing species. The hunter scenario has another variation that's somehow even more chilling. What if the elimination isn't violent? What if it's subtle? Cultural contamination. They make contact, share technology, and that technology fundamentally alters our civilization in ways that lead to our collapse. Not maliciously, just as a side effect of contact. Between species at vastly different technological levels, we've seen this happen on Earth. Indigenous cultures exposed to more technologically advanced societies often experience social collapse, not because of deliberate genocide, but because the cultural and economic disruption is too severe to adapt to. An alien civilization might genuinely believe they're being helpful, offering technology, knowledge, solutions to our problems, while actually ensuring our demise. If 3i Atlas represents hunters, then first contact would probably be our last contact. A brief transmission, maybe, a warning we'd receive too late to act on, and then silence, or maybe no warning at all. Just a sudden inexplicable catastrophe, an asteroid deflected from its orbit, a solar flare triggered artificially, a plague with no natural origin, or maybe nothing dramatic, just gradual realization that our technology is failing, our infrastructure collapsing, our civilization unwinding in ways we can't explain or prevent. I don't enjoy exploring this scenario. Nobody does. But if we're serious about considering what 3i Atlas might represent, we have to think about all the possibilities, even the dark ones, because ignorance doesn't protect us. Only awareness and preparation do, so we have three broad categories: explorers, refugees, hunters. Each represents different motivations, different approaches to first contact, different outcomes for humanity. But all three scenarios assume one thing: that communication is possible. That if contact happens, we'll be able to understand each other, talk to each other, negotiate with each other. Is that assumption valid? In 1974, humans sent our first deliberate message to the stars, the Arecibo message. A radio transmission beamed toward the globular cluster M13, about 25,000 light-years away. It lasted less than 3 minutes, but contained information about humanity, Earth, our solar system, our DNA, our numbers. It was symbolic, really. M13 is so far away that any response would take 50,000 years, 25,000 for our message to arrive, 25,000 for their response to reach us. Nobody expected a conversation, but it represented something profound. Humanity saying, "We're here, we exist. We're reaching out." Since then, we've sent other messages. The Voyager Golden Records, radio transmissions to nearby stars. SETI has listening protocols and response plans in case we ever receive a confirmed signal. But here's what's interesting about all these efforts. They assume communication will be electromagnetic. Radio waves, light pulses, laser transmissions. Things that travel at the speed of light and can be detected across interstellar distances. What if that assumption is wrong? If 3i Atlas is artificial, it represents a completely different form of communication. Not electromagnetic, but physical. Not broadcast across the void, but delivered directly. A message in a bottle. Except the bottle is 7 miles wide, made of ancient ice, and traveling at 74,000 miles per hour. Think about what that means. If you wanted to send information across interstellar distances, you have basically two options. Option 1, electromagnetic signals, fast. Light speed. Can reach distant stars in years or decades, but signals degrade over distance. They spread out, get weaker, can be drowned out by cosmic noise, and they're vulnerable to interception. Anyone between you and your target can detect them. Option 2, physical probes. Slow, might take thousands or millions of years to reach their destination, but they can carry vastly more information. Detailed databases, biological samples, technology, even living organisms in suspended animation, if you're really ambitious, and they're discreet. Unless someone's specifically looking for them and knows what to look for, they blend in with natural space debris. Or Atlas, if it's artificial, represents option 2, which suggests something about its creator's priorities. They're not announcing themselves. They're not broadcasting their existence to anyone who might be listening. They're sending discrete probes to specific targets, star systems with potential for life, for habitability, for whatever they're searching for. This is reconnaissance, not outreach. But here's the fascinating question. If 3i Atlas wanted to communicate with us, how would it do so? Let's think through some possibilities. Method 1, direct transmission. When it reaches a certain proximity, maybe during the Jupiter encounter in March 2026, it could transmit a radio signal, something we couldn't miss. A repeating mathematical sequence, prime numbers, something that screams artificial in ways that can't be misinterpreted. But why wait? If communication is the goal, why not transmit as soon as it enters detection range? Unless the wait is part of the protocol. Observe first, communicate second. Make sure the target civilization is ready for contact before revealing yourself. Method 2, physical message. Maybe the object itself is the message. Its trajectory, its composition, its behavior, all carefully designed to convey information to any civilization advanced enough to detect and analyze it. The 1 in 20,000 trajectory probability. That could be deliberate. a way of saying this isn't random. Pay attention, the pristine composition, information about where it came from, what kind of stellar environment produced it, the missing cometary gases, a signal that something about this object doesn't follow natural patterns. In this scenario, we're already receiving the message. We're just struggling to decode it. Method 3. Delayed activation. Maybe 3I Atlas contains dormant systems that will activate under specific conditions. Proximity to Earth, detection of our electromagnetic emissions. Or just a preset timer, arrive at the solar system, wait X amount of time, then initiate contact protocols. This would explain why we're not detecting any obvious artificial signals yet. The probe hasn't woken up yet. There's a more exotic possibility, though. One that challenges our assumptions about communication entirely. What if they're already communicating and we just don't recognize it? Human communication is based on our sensory biology. We use sound because we have ears, visual symbols because we have eyes. We've extended our communication through technology, radio, internet, fiber optics, but it's all ultimately designed for human perception. An alien species might communicate in ways we can't perceive or haven't thought to look for. Neutrino beams, gravitational waves, quantum entanglement, modulation of dark matter flows. The universe is full of phenomena we're barely beginning to understand. Any of them could theoretically be used for communication by a sufficiently advanced civilization. Atlas might be broadcasting constantly, just not in a medium we're monitoring, or, and this is even stranger, what if communication isn't through signals at all, but through actions? There is a concept in game theory called signaling games, where you communicate information not through explicit messages, but through costly actions that demonstrate something about your type, your intentions, your capabilities. Atlas's trajectory could be a signal. We can navigate interstellar space with precision. We can reach your system. We can time our arrival to observe multiple planets. This demonstrates our technological level. The object's size could be a signal. We can move massive objects across interstellar distances. This demonstrates our energy resources. The lack of obvious artificial signals could be a signal. We're discreet. We respect boundaries. We observe before revealing ourselves. This demonstrates our ethics. In 1961, a scientist named Frank Drake developed an equation to estimate the number of detectable civilizations in our galaxy. One of the variables in that equation is L, the length of time civilizations remain detectable. Drake assumed L would be long. That once a civilization starts broadcasting radio signals, they'd continue for centuries, maybe millennia. But what if that's wrong? What if most civilizations go through a brief, noisy phase, a few centuries of electromagnetic broadcasting, and then transition to quieter communication methods? Directed laser transmissions instead of broadcasts, physical probes instead of radio signals, or technologies we haven't discovered yet. If that's true, then the galaxy might be full of quiet civilizations. All communicating, all active, but in ways that don't involve electromagnetic broadcasts we can intercept. Atlas might represent that kind of quiet communication. A deliberate message that requires active detection and analysis rather than passive listening. Now let's talk about what happens if 3I Atlas does communicate, or if its creators eventually reach out directly. How do we respond? Believe it or not, there are actual protocols for this. They're not legally binding, and they're not universally agreed upon, but they exist. The SETI Institute has published a Declaration of Principles Concerning Activities. Following the detection of extraterrestrial intelligence, it's been endorsed by dozens of scientific organizations. The basic steps: 1. Verify before announcing anything publicly. Make absolutely sure the signal is artificial. Get multiple independent confirmations. Rule out human-made sources, natural phenomena, equipment malfunction. This seems obvious, but false alarms happen. In 1967, astronomers detected the first pulsar and briefly called it LGM-1, Little Green Men 1, before realizing it was a natural phenomenon. 2. Inform, once confirmed. Notify relevant authorities, International Astronomical Union, national space agencies, eventually the United Nations. The idea is that first contact is humanity's experience, not just one nation's or one organization's. 3. Don't respond yet. This is crucial. Don't transmit a reply without international consultation. Because once you respond, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for the entire human species, and not everyone might agree with what you say, or that you should say anything at all. That last point is where things get complicated. Because there's legitimate disagreement about whether we should respond to alien contact at all. Some scientists argue we should absolutely respond. That remaining silent is cowardly, that the opportunity for knowledge exchange is too valuable to pass up, that any civilization advanced enough for interstellar communication is probably benign. Others argue for caution. We don't know who's out there or what they want. Broadcasting our presence might attract attention we don't want. Better to listen quietly, gather information, and only respond when we're more certain of the risks. This debate has been going on for decades within the SETI community. And there's no consensus, but here's the thing about 3i Atlas. If it's artificial, the decision might already be made for us. If it's observing us, then we've already been detected. They already know we're here. The question isn't whether to reveal ourselves. The question is how to respond when they eventually make contact. I think about this sometimes. What I'd want to say if we had the chance to speak to another civilization, not representing humanity, I'm not qualified for that, but just as one conscious being to another. I think I'd want to say, we're trying. We're flawed and young, and we make terrible mistakes. But we're trying to be better. We're trying to understand the universe. We're trying to understand ourselves. And we're terrified and hopeful in equal measure about meeting you. But that's probably too human, too emotional. Maybe they wouldn't understand emotions at all. Maybe their psychology is so different from ours that concepts like hope and fear are meaningless to them. Or maybe, and this is what I secretly believe, maybe those feelings are universal. Maybe any conscious being that evolved through natural selection, that survived existential challenges, that reached for the stars despite the odds. Maybe they all know what it means to hope, to fear, to wonder if you're alone. There's another aspect to communication we haven't discussed yet, one that's potentially more important than any protocol or procedure. What would we learn about ourselves through contact? Because communication isn't just about exchanging information. It's about perspective, about seeing yourself through another's eyes. And if 3i Atlas's creators are watching us, studying us, analyzing our civilization, what do they see? Let's find out. There's an exercise anthropologists sometimes do. It's called making the familiar strange. You look at your own culture as if you're an outsider encountering it for the first time. Strip away your assumptions, your biases, your taken-for-granted knowledge, and try to see it fresh. It's harder than it sounds. We're so embedded in our own context that objectivity is almost impossible. But tonight, let's try. Let's imagine we're 3i Atlas's creators looking at Earth and humanity through alien eyes. What would we see? First observation, a planet in the Goldilocks zone. Earth orbits at the perfect distance from its star for liquid water. Temperatures range from livable to extreme, but mostly livable. Atmosphere rich in nitrogen and oxygen, the oxygen produced by biological processes over billions of years. From space, Earth is obviously alive. The seasonal changes in vegetation, the blue of the oceans, the white swirl of clouds, the green tinge in the atmosphere from chlorophyll, any observer would immediately flag this as a biological world. And biological worlds are rare, we think. We don't know for sure, but our best estimates suggest planets with complex life are uncommon. So, first impression, this is special. This is worth studying. Second observation, the lights. When 3i Atlas observed Earth's night side, and it would have during its approach, it would have seen something unusual. Artificial light. Huge concentrations of it, sprawling across continents in patterns that clearly aren't natural. Cities, highways, industrial facilities, all glowing against the darkness. This is the signature of a technological civilization. Energy consumption on a massive scale. Artificial structures covering significant portions of the land surface. This would be the moment the mission changes from biological survey to intelligent species assessment. Because intelligent, technological life is, as far as we know, extraordinarily rare. Third observation, the electromagnetic spectrum, Earth, is noisy. We've been broadcasting radio and television signals for about a century now. Those signals radiate outward at the speed of light, creating an expanding bubble of human culture. TV shows, radio programs, radar installations, satellite communications, TI Atlas would have detected this noise long before entering the solar system, analyzed it, decoded it if they have sufficiently advanced pattern recognition. Imagine what they'd learn from our broadcasts. Our languages, our conflicts, our entertainment, our obsessions with certain frequencies and certain messages. What would they think of reality TV? Of news broadcasts covering wars and disasters? Of advertising? Of religious programming? Would they understand it as culture, as noise? As evidence of a chaotic, divided species still figuring itself out? Fourth observation, the division. From space, Earth's political boundaries are invisible. But they'd become apparent through other signatures, different technological standards in different regions, varying levels of light pollution, military installations near borders, the movement patterns of aircraft and ships respecting territorial boundaries. They'd realize we're not a unified species. We're divided into competing groups, nations, cultures, ideologies that sometimes cooperate but often conflict. This might surprise them. Or maybe it wouldn't. Maybe division is normal for young civilizations. Maybe every species goes through this phase before either unifying or destroying itself. But either way, they'd note it. Species has not achieved planetary governance. Conflict potential high. Fifth observation, the chemistry. Earth's atmosphere has changed dramatically in the last 2 centuries. Carbon dioxide levels rising. Methane concentrations increasing. Industrial pollutants that don't occur naturally appearing in detectable quantities. From an alien perspective, this is interesting. It's evidence of large-scale chemistry, of energy production through combustion, of industrial processes that are altering the planet's atmospheric composition. It's also evidence of a civilization that either doesn't realize it's changing its atmosphere or doesn't have the technology to stop it yet. A Type I civilization would have solved this problem, would have transitioned to clean energy, balanced their carbon cycle, stabilized their climate. We haven't, which tells them something about where we are on the technological development curve. Sixth observation, the weapons, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We've invented extraordinarily creative ways to kill each other, and we've used them. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, chemical attacks in various conflicts. The historical use of biological warfare. An alien observer would see the detonation signatures, would detect the residual radiation, would analyze our weapons programs through intelligence leaks and public information. They'd realize this species has the technology to destroy itself and has come close to using it in ways that could trigger civilizational collapse. That's concerning from their perspective, because maybe they've seen this before. Maybe they've watched other civilizations reach this stage. Some survive it, some don't. We're in the danger zone. The period where a species has enough power to be existentially dangerous to itself, but not enough wisdom to manage that power reliably. Seventh observation, the mathematics and science. But it's not all negative. We've also done something remarkable. We figured out the universe. Not completely, not perfectly, but we've made astonishing progress. Quantum mechanics, relativity, evolutionary biology, neuroscience. We've decoded DNA, built computers, sent spacecraft to other planets. For a species that's only been doing systematic science for a few centuries, we've achieved a lot. An alien civilization would recognize this, would see the signatures of advanced mathematics in our communications, of scientific understanding in our technology. They'd see the International Space Station, the Hubble telescope, the Mars rovers, the Voyager probes carrying messages to anyone who might find them. They'd see a species reaching outward, curious, driven to explore and understand. That's probably a good sign. Curiosity is how species survive long enough to become spacefaring. If we were incurious, complacent, satisfied with our current knowledge, we'd never advance beyond this stage. Eighth observation, the art. This one's speculative. But bear with me, if 3i Atlas's creators have decoded our broadcasts, they've encountered our art, music, visual art, stories, poetry, films, the accumulated creative output of human civilization. What would they make of it? Would they understand it as communication? As expressions of inner states we call emotions? Would they have their own equivalent? Or is art a uniquely human or uniquely biological phenomenon? I like to think they'd be fascinated, that they'd recognize in our art something universal, the attempt to express internal experiences, to communicate feelings that can't be captured in pure data, to create beauty for its own sake, or maybe they'd be completely baffled. Maybe art makes no sense to them, the way certain human behaviors make no sense to us when we observe animals engaging in them. Ninth observation, the life forms. Earth isn't just humans. It's millions of species, vast ecosystems, complex webs of interdependence. An alien observer would note the biodiversity, would catalog the different forms life has taken on this planet, would be particularly interested in the intelligent species we share Earth with, cetaceans, great apes, elephants, corvids. They might wonder why only one species became technological. They might study the evolutionary paths that led to humans versus other intelligent species. They might have theories about what makes a species capable of developing technology versus just intelligence, and they'd note how we treat those other species, the extinctions we've caused, the habitats we've destroyed, but also the conservation efforts, the attempts to preserve biodiversity even as we expand our own population and technology. Mixed record, like everything about us. 10th observation, the trajectory. Synthesizing all these observations, what would 3i Atlas's creators conclude about our trajectory? Where we're headed as a civilization? Are we ascending toward Type 1 status? Successfully managing our planetary resources, unifying politically? Preparing for expansion beyond Earth? Or are we on a path toward collapse? Environmental degradation, political instability, technological risks we can't manage? The honest answer is it could go either way, and they'd probably see that. They'd see a civilization at an inflection point. The decisions we make in the next few decades or centuries will determine which path we take. And here's the uncomfortable question. Based on what they observe, would they want to make contact? Would they see us as potential peers? A young civilization worth engaging with despite our flaws? Or would they see us as too dangerous, too unstable, too likely to either destroy ourselves or become a threat to others? There's a thought experiment I want to share. It's called the contact dilemma, and it goes like this. You're an advanced civilization. You've detected a younger species, humanity. You have three options. Option A, contact them now. Share knowledge. Accelerate their development. Help them solve their existential problems. But this carries risks. Your technology might destabilize their civilization. They might become dependent on you. They might misuse what you teach them. Cultural contamination is a real danger. Option B, wait. Continue observing. Let them mature on their own. Make contact only when they've proven they can manage their own power, unify their species, and think beyond their immediate survival. But this carries different risks. They might destroy themselves while you watch. They might make decisions you could have helped them avoid. Your non-intervention might be a kind of cruelty. Option C, never contact them. Observe silently. Study them for scientific purposes, but never reveal yourself. Leave them to their own fate, whatever that might be. This minimizes your risk, but maximizes theirs. And it raises moral questions about responsibility. If you have the power to help and choose not to, what does that say about you? There's no right answer. Each option has costs and benefits. Each reflects different values, different ethical frameworks, different assumptions about what advanced civilizations owe to younger ones. If 3i Atlas's creators are watching us, they're probably wrestling with exactly this dilemma right now. But here's what I think, what I hope. They'd see in us. Yes, we're divided. Yes, we're flawed. Yes, we've made terrible mistakes and continue to make them. But we're also capable of extraordinary compassion, of cooperation on global scales, of sacrificing immediate benefits for long-term sustainability. of caring about beings who aren't even our own species. We've created art that moves us to tears, science that reveals the universe's beauty, philosophy that grapples with our place in the cosmos. We've sent messages to the stars not expecting replies just because we wanted to say, we're here, we're a young species, still figuring things out, still learning how to manage our own power, but we're trying. And that has to count for something. If 3i Atlas's creators looked at us with compassion, with an understanding of what it's like to be young and struggling and reaching for something better, then maybe contact becomes possible, maybe even inevitable, because maybe they remember being where we are. Maybe every civilization goes through this awkward adolescence, this dangerous period between discovering fire and mastering it, and maybe the advanced ones survive by helping each other through it. That's the hopeful scenario. The one where first contact is an invitation to join a galactic community, where we're not alone anymore, where we have guides, mentors, allies in the cosmic dark. Let's explore what that might look like. Whether or not 3i Atlas is artificial, whether or not we ever make contact with another civilization, the questions we've explored tonight are worth thinking about, because they force us to confront fundamental questions about ourselves, about what we value, about who we want to be as a species. If aliens are watching us, what do we want them to see? What would make us proud? What would make us ashamed? Those questions apply even if no one's watching. They're questions about who we are and who we're becoming. I believe, and this is just personal belief, nothing I can prove, I believe we're not alone. I believe the universe is too vast, too old, too full of stars and planets for intelligence to have emerged only once. I believe there are others out there. Maybe many others. Maybe we're one of the youngest, or maybe civilizations are common, and we just haven't connected yet. And I believe that if we survive our current challenges, if we mature as a species, if we reach the stars ourselves someday, we'll find them. Or they'll find us. And I deeply hope, that when that meeting happens, it's one of mutual curiosity, mutual respect, mutual wonder, not conflict, not exploitation, not conquest or submission, just two different forms of consciousness, recognizing each other across the cosmic void, saying, you exist. I exist. We're not alone. 3i Atlas will complete its journey through our solar system. In a few months, it'll pass Jupiter and continue outward, eventually fading from view as it returns to the darkness between stars. Maybe it's just a comet. An unusual one, statistically improbable, but natural nonetheless. Or maybe it's something more. A message, an observer, a first contact that we're still learning to recognize. Either way, it's reminded us that the universe is full of mysteries, that we're small and the cosmos is vast, that there are questions we haven't answered, and maybe questions we haven't even learned to ask yet. If you're still listening, thank you. Thank you for wondering with me, for thinking about big questions that might not have easy answers, for staying curious about what's out there. The universe is speaking to us through objects like 3i Atlas, through the light from distant stars, through the cosmic microwave background radiation that's been traveling since the universe was young. We just need to keep listening, keep watching, keep asking questions, because somewhere out there, maybe someone is doing the same thing, wondering if they're alone, looking at the stars, hoping to find others like them, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find each other. Look up tonight if you can. Find Jupiter if it's visible. Think about 3i Atlas, somewhere out there, completing its arc through our solar system, and wonder. That's all we can do, really. Wonder and hope. And keep reaching for understanding. Sleep well. Dream of distant stars and the beings who might live around them. Dream of first contact and the conversations we might someday have. And when you wake up, remember, we live in a universe that's still full of mysteries, still full of possibilities, still full of questions waiting to be answered. That's beautiful and terrifying and wonderful. This has been 3i Atlas. If it's a spacecraft, who's coming? Thank you for listening. Thank you for thinking. Thank you for caring about questions that might not be answered in our lifetimes. Clear skies, open minds, hopeful hearts, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get to find out together. I want to spend our final section on hope. Because we've explored some dark possibilities tonight, and we need to balance that with scenarios where first contact transforms humanity for the better. Not naively hopeful, not ignoring risks, but genuinely optimistic about what might be possible if we're lucky, if they're benevolent, if the universe is kinder than our fears suggest. Imagine this, March 2026. 3I Atlas is passing through Jupiter's magnetosphere, and suddenly it transmits, not to any specific nation or organization, to everyone. A signal strong enough that amateur radio operators detect it, that can't be suppressed or controlled. That reaches the entire planet simultaneously. The signal contains mathematical proofs, prime numbers, universal physical constants, things that demonstrate intelligence beyond any doubt. Then it shifts to more complex messages, pictorial representations of their biology, their star system, their history, and an invitation. We know you're there. We've been watching. You're not alone. We'd like to talk. The global response would be chaotic, panicked, hopeful, confused. Every human on Earth would suddenly have to confront the fact that we're not the only intelligence in the universe. Religions would need to reconsider doctrines developed in cosmic isolation. Philosophers would grapple with questions about consciousness and intelligence, taking forms we never imagined. Scientists would have a million questions and no immediate way to get answers. But beneath the chaos, something else would happen. Unity, maybe. Or at least a recognition that our human divisions seem smaller when viewed against the backdrop of a cosmic civilization we know nothing about. In this scenario, they don't rush contact. They give us time to process, to debate, to decide collectively how to respond. Maybe they transmit educational content, mathematics we haven't discovered, physics that explains phenomena we don't understand, not weapons, not power that could destabilize us. Just knowledge, information we can verify independently and incorporate into our understanding. They teach us like patient mentors, answering questions when we ask them, offering guidance but respecting our autonomy, letting us set the pace. And gradually, over years or decades, humanity begins to change. Not because they force us to, but because contact with another civilization gives us perspective on ourselves. We see our conflicts as petty, our environmental crisis as solvable, our future as part of something larger than just Earth. This is the Star Trek scenario, the one where first contact elevates us, where we join a galactic community, not because we're forced to, but because we're invited and we're ready. Here's another hopeful possibility, one that's more subtle. 3I Atlas doesn't transmit directly. Instead, it positions itself somewhere accessible, maybe in orbit around Mars, maybe at a Lagrange point in the Earth-Moon system, and it waits. It's a gift, a library, a database containing the accumulated knowledge of an advanced civilization. Mathematics, science, engineering, philosophy, art, history, everything they think we're ready to learn. But we have to come get it. We have to build the spacecraft, make the journey, demonstrate that we've achieved enough technological sophistication to access the knowledge responsibly. It's a test and a gift simultaneously. Prove you can reach us, and we'll teach you what we know. This scenario appeals to me because it respects our agency. They're not imposing contact. They're making it available on our terms when we're ready. And the act of reaching the library becomes a unifying goal for humanity, a reason to cooperate internationally, to pool resources, to achieve something extraordinary together. The first mission to 3I Atlas becomes humanity's moon landing. A moment when we transcend our divisions and work toward a common purpose. And what we find there? Well, it could be transformative. Solutions to energy crises, medical knowledge that eliminates diseases, understanding of physics that opens doors we didn't know existed, not given freely, but earned, which makes it more valuable, more meaningful. Scenario 3, the long game. This one's more patient, more gradual. Atlas observes us, transmits its data back to its creators, and then nothing. For a long time, decades, maybe centuries, they're waiting for us to mature, to solve our existential problems on our own, to prove we can manage planetary resources sustainably, to unify politically, or at least develop robust systems for international cooperation. They're watching but not interfering, letting us grow up at our own pace. And then, when we've achieved certain milestones, maybe establishing permanent off-world colonies, maybe developing fusion power, maybe creating stable global governance, they reach out. Congratulations! You've passed the threshold. We've been waiting for you. Welcome to the community. This scenario assumes that the galaxy has rules. Informal ones, maybe, but rules nonetheless. Young civilizations are left alone to develop independently. Contact happens only when they've demonstrated certain capabilities, certain maturity. It's like a cosmic coming-of-age ritual. You don't get invited to the adults' table until you've proven you can handle the responsibility, and maybe that's wise. Maybe civilizations that receive advanced knowledge too early get overwhelmed by it, misuse it, destroy themselves with it. Maybe the ones that survive long-term are the ones that developed their technology and ethics in parallel at a pace they could manage. Let me take a step back from specific scenarios and talk about what contact would mean on a deeper level. First, it would answer the oldest question in human history. Are we alone? No, we're not. And that changes everything. Every human who ever lived wondered about this. Every culture developed myths and stories about beings from the sky. Every astronomer who pointed a telescope at the stars wondered if someone was looking back, and, suddenly, we'd know, not theoretically, not speculatively, but definitely, unambiguously, undeniably, there are others out there. That knowledge would reshape human consciousness. Our religions, our philosophies, our understanding of our place in the universe, all of it would need to be reconsidered. We'd no longer be the universe's only witnesses. We'd be one voice in a cosmic conversation that might include thousands or millions of other voices. Second, it would give us perspective on ourselves. Right now, we only have one example of intelligence, one example of civilization, us. We don't know what's universal about intelligence and what's specific to human evolution and culture. Contact with another civilization would give us that comparison point. We'd see what aspects of intelligence are common, maybe curiosity, maybe tool use, maybe language, and what aspects are uniquely human. We'd understand ourselves better by seeing ourselves reflected in alien minds. Third, and this is crucial, it would give us hope. Because if another civilization survived long enough to achieve interstellar travel, it means survival is possible. It means the existential risks we face, climate change, nuclear weapons, AI, pandemics, can be overcome. They made it. Which means we can too. That knowledge alone might be enough to inspire the cooperation and long-term thinking we need to solve our problems. I think about this a lot, what first contact would feel like. Not as an abstract concept, but as a lived moment. Imagine being alive the day we receive confirmed communication from another civilization. Waking up to news that isn't about human politics or human conflicts, but about them, whoever they are, the conversations you'd have, the questions you'd ask, the wonder you'd feel, knowing that somewhere out there, someone else is wondering about you too. I envy future generations if this happens in their lifetime. They'll grow up in a universe that's bigger, stranger, more full of possibility than the one we've known. They'll know things we can only speculate about. They'll have perspective we can't imagine. We're almost at the end now. 2 hours together, thinking about who might be out there, what they might want, what contact would mean. I want to leave you with a few final thoughts.